Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Carolyn Kuhl. I'm the Assistant Presiding Judge of Los Angeles County. Thank you for this hearing. I want to thank all the members for signing the letter in support of adequate funding for the courts. I particularly want to thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the time you've spent in understanding the problems that we face and for your deep understanding of the needs of the court and the importance of timely access to justice. We here in Los Angeles have faced $187 million of cuts. The only way we could get through was to reduce our staff by 25%. In doing that, we've tried to make good decisions. We've kept our self-help center. We've kept access to domestic violence restraining orders. We've kept our collaborative courts. But the cases keep coming in with 25% less of our expert staff to process those cases. The result is delay and more delay and lines. And delay has a human face. Delay has the face of a child whose parents are in a contentious divorce and who are waiting 6 months for that contentious dispute to be resolved by a custody order from the court. Delay has the face of a hardworking citizen, hardworking constituent of yours who's spending hours in line in our courthouses and coming back the next day perhaps because we can't get to them. That happened to 80 of your constituents on one day in one courthouse in the last month. And delay has the face of someone who's injured, who's bringing a lawsuit and has to wait just for one motion to be resolved for up to 8 months. We've met with you, Mr. Chairman, and we have told you that we believe we can fix these problems with adequate funding. We've told you our priorities. We believe we can fix the lines. We can forestall continued delay and begin to deliver justice more promptly. You have in writing our priorities to pay the benefits that are due to our employees, to open more courtrooms. We've closed 80 courtrooms, and to address the backlogs that we have in our back office staffing so that we can get orders out promptly and file documents promptly for access to the public. So again, I thank you, and if you give us the resources, we can stand for your constituents who come to us in crisis to resolve their disputes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I probably should have said it earlier. I had to leave the room, but can we keep it to about 2 minutes apiece? Otherwise, we'll be here till the end of budget season.
No problem, Mr. Chairman. I'm Nancy Drabble. I'm the CEO of Consumer Attorneys of California. Yesterday, we had 200 of our lawyers here in the Capitol to advocate for increased court funding, and they saw many of you. And they are here on behalf of their clients, who are plaintiffs in civil cases, whether it's a product liability case, a case where someone's hit by a drunk driver, a civil rights case. They're all different kinds of civil cases that they handle. The main point I want to make is that the cuts in recent years in court funding have had a very disproportionate effect on civil cases. Because criminal cases have a constitutional preference, they have not felt the cuts in such a devastating fashion. So a 10% cut overall has been about a 40% cut in access to justice for people with any kind of civil matter. And so for our members, when somebody has a client who has been hit by a drunk driver and they have to wait 3 years instead of 1 year to get their day in court, that person, in fact, we have real clients who have lost their house in the meantime because they can't get their day in court. They have gone on Medi-Cal, putting more of a burden on the state, and so they could recover from the responsible party if they could do it in a timely fashion. But with the recent cuts, they can no longer do that. So I thank you for your leadership, and I know how dedicated you have been and the other members of the committee in trying to reinvest in the courts, and so we can provide the basic service and have the access to justice for the citizens of California. Thanks.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair and members, Jennifer Brewer on behalf of the California Chamber of Commerce, and we too are in support of additional court funding. Having a fully functioning judicial branch affects all litigants, including businesses who need a timely resolution of their disputes as well, so that they can continue to dedicate more resources to growing their business and developing those business. A consideration for all businesses as to where they locate is the judicial environment of a state, and the component of that is to have a fully functioning judicial branch. So we are supportive of additional funding, and we appreciate your support on the issue.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members. Barbara Ferguson, representing Sheriff John McMahon, urging your support of the judicial branch funding. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Chris Gardner. I'm the Assistant Public Defender for San Bernardino County. You've heard some of the things that are going on, how the cuts have affected the civil bar. They are many, but let me just give you a brief synopsis of what's going on with our indigent clients in San Bernardino. Our clients are having to travel anywhere from 75 to 360 miles round trip in the desert locations to get to court. When the indigent folks are charged with small crimes, misdemeanors, infractions, they might not be able to take off work to get to take that kind of a drive and get to where they need to get to. What happens is they get a bench warrant out for something they'd never go to jail for missing court. Then they get put in jail. A lot of times when our clients are able to make the efforts, the drastic efforts to get child care, to get transportation, they get to court, they may have a good case. My lawyers are speaking with them, and my lawyers are trying to convince them, hey, we need to put this off a little bit. Looks like, they may be saying they didn't do it. We need to do some investigation. Well, how long is that going to take? Well, you're going to have to come back a couple more times. And our clients are saying, we can't come back. We'll just admit that we did it and move forward because we need to get this past us. We can't afford this. We can't miss work. We can't take care of our kids. We can't have our kids have someone else pick them up from school. It's a real problem, and I would urge you to fully fund their request. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is David Danielson. I'm the presiding judge of the San Diego Superior Court. I share the message of gratitude to the members of the legislature who've signed an endorsement of access to justice. We appreciate the letter very much and your sentiments expressed to the governor. Mr. Chairman, thank you for the time that you spent with us on Monday discussing how our individual needs are a lot similar but very different in the way that they're expressed. We, like Los Angeles, have suffered a 25% cut in our employees. And the predictions of a slowdown in justice are no longer predictions. They're a reality in my jurisdiction. We have taken a very efficient civil justice system, very efficient family law system, and slowed it down to the point where the justice consumers in San Diego County are crying out for relief. They need your help, and we appreciate your assistance to get the courts to where they need to be to serve the communities.
Mr. Chairman and members, Mike Belote, first on behalf of the California Judges Association. You've heard from 7 or 8 of the leading presiding judges in California. We recently had a statewide event in Southern California, and on behalf of the 58 counties, we heard several things that were in common. And the first is that this is primarily a problem of human capital, that judges are ready to go to provide the efficiencies, to provide the accountability that you've asked for, but it is primarily a loss of the human capital necessary to staff the judicial branch, and they're ready to restore that and get back to work with the kind of support that they've noted from you. Secondly, I think there is a renewed optimism throughout the state. The judges recognize that you recognize the problem, and we're hearing that from you and your colleagues, whether from both sides of the aisle, from the rural and urban areas, Democrats and Republicans, and for that the judges in all 58 counties are very appreciative. Secondly, for the California Defense Council, the Civil Defense Bar, I would second the comments that Nancy Drabble made on behalf of the plaintiffs' bar. When it comes time to actually get your case tried, the courts are doing yeoman work getting the trials out, but it is the lead up to the trial that is often the problem. The ability to get a demurrer heard or a summary judgment motion heard, and that is getting way delayed, and that's slowing down the system to the detriment of all parties in the civil cases. So on behalf of the civil bar, we would renew the request for restoration of funding. Thank you.
Right, thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Jacqueline Carey Wilson, and I'm Deputy County Counsel in the County of San Bernardino, and I'm President of the Rivers County Bar Association. So I have a foot in both counties. And as you are well aware, our counties in the Inland Empire have been severely underfunded. We greatly appreciate the support you've given the judicial branch and are thankful for the letter that you sent to the governor, and we're hopeful for the additional resources to restore, to step back, a step towards the restoration of access to justice in the Inland Empire and throughout the whole state. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. My name is Anthony Sears. I'm here on behalf of the Western San Bernardino County Bar Association, of which I am president this year, and also on behalf of the San Bernardino County Bar Association. Between us, we have about 1,100 members, hardworking lawyers across the largest county, as we know, in the United States. I want to thank you for your leadership on signing this letter to the governor, and I really want to talk briefly about a little more access to justice. We have, I practice in landlord-tenant law, represent landlords and tenants. My landlord clients can afford to have me drive to the courthouse, wherever it is, and take care of their case. The tenants, however, often don't have that luxury and are oftentimes denied in a summary proceeding their day in court. And this leads to a lot of times where people are getting evicted when they shouldn't be evicted. This does not help the economy in any way. It does not promote social stability, and it slowly is leading to a degradation of this once great state of ours. So I would urge the legislature to fully approve the Chief Justice's budget plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, members, David Yamasaki, Court Executive Officer for the Superior Court in Santa Clara. I want to just take this moment, first of all, to thank you for hearing our pleas in our current budget year with the augmentation that we received. It came at a very, very critical time for us, and I like to see that or consider that a step in our road to recovery. But our challenges that we face next year are even more dire. In the absence of our fund balances, we no longer have resources to draw upon to continue with some of the programs that are very important to the people that we serve. And we're hoping that the remarks that you've heard about the status quo serves as a base from which to begin that consideration. The people that we serve deserve better than status quo. We at one point in time delivered that level of service, and the only way that we could resume that level of service is to see a restoration along the lines of what was contained in the Chief's blueprint. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, thank you for allowing us just a few minutes. My name's Mark Cope. I'm the presiding judge from the Riverside Superior Court. I'm not here representing the administrative office of the courts or even the judicial council. I represent the Californians of Riverside County, and I think I'd be a little bit derelict in my duties if I didn't take just a minute to thank you for all your efforts. The letter was a very important step, but I know that there have been other efforts going on for the last year at least, as you have worked to restore some of these resources that are necessary. In representing these folks in Riverside County, those of us who are presiding judges see every day the impacts that these budget cuts have had, and the stories that have been told are true in each of the 58 counties. It's just a matter of degree for each, and so I'm here just to ask for support for the Chief's blueprint, and thank you for the support we've seen.
Good afternoon, Ignacio Hernandez on behalf of the California Attorneys for Criminal Justice, which is a statewide association of criminal defense attorneys. Even though you've heard that criminal cases take precedence and priority when it comes to trial, even our attorneys and their clients are finding problems, calendars that are full, having to put over cases that normally we could go ahead and go forward with. So we are running into the problems. We do support funding for the courts. I also want to speak on behalf of the California Federation of Interpreters, who represent interpreters who provide services in all 58 counties, in the courtrooms in all 58 counties. We do support funding for the courts. We also want to caution caution everyone here that while we're talking about funding and increased funding, and we're talking about looking for efficiencies, we have to make sure that we're not trading efficiency for effectiveness. Right now, our court interpreters stand side by side with the individuals, the limited English-speaking individuals who want their day in court, who want the access to justice. And there are now proposals being floated amongst local courts to replace live interpreters in the courtroom with video screens, and interpreters would be off somewhere else. This is something that's new. It hasn't been vetted by the legislature. It's something that we think is problematic. We don't think that even with the budget constraints that we have, it's justified. We think it needs to be looked at thoroughly before we go forward. The risk, we talk about access to justice, we also have to remember equal access to justice. And so we want to make sure that if someone who is limited English speaking, they have a right to an ability to communicate with the court, communicate during court proceedings. And if there's a video screen and maybe the line goes down, maybe it freezes up, there's so many potential problems. So we ask that we be careful about local courts trying to go off on their own to do this while we deal with the big issue of court funding. And it really doesn't save any money. It just puts at risk the equal access to justice that we talked about. So thank you.
Thank you.
Chairman, members of the committee, I'm Marla Marshall, and I represent Sheriff Bill Gore of the San Diego County Sheriff's Department, and we respectfully support the restoration of this much-needed funding. Thank you.
Mr. Chair and members, Corey Salzillo on behalf of the California State Sheriff's Association here in support of the judicial branch funding. Just two points that I would make. We've talked about access to justice. What we really need to remember is that the court access issues also affect other agencies downstream, particularly sheriff's offices, in two particular ways. One, in terms of transport. When courts are closed, sheriffs have to transport inmates for their court dates, longer distances. That takes time and money. And secondarily, the longer we have to hold inmates who are awaiting court dates or going through trial, that just adds to our overcrowded jails and burden. So we thank you for your support.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I'm Brian Walsh. I'm the presiding judge of Santa Clara County Superior Court, and I'm the chair of the statewide trial court presiding judges committee. We've met with members of this committee. We've read your letter. You've taken the time to understand our problems. Obviously, you get it, and we greatly thank you for your support. You understand that your constituents are our constituents, and we both want the same thing for them. So please, give us the tools, and we will do the job. But the LAO, in their very fine report, mentioned trial court efficiencies. I want to assure this committee we're on it. The Chief Justice appointed a task force, of which I was privileged to be chair, and within 7 months, we have produced what I've just presented to you, what we call the Innovation Knowledge Center, a collection not of brand new efficiencies, but efficiencies that are being created in months past, years past, and today, that are making the trial court more efficient and more effective. And what we've done with this Knowledge Center, which went live Friday afternoon at 3:10, an hour and 50 minutes before deadline, what we've done with this is not just create the efficiency of this tool to share it around the states, but we've shown, I hope, to you the many efficiencies that our trial courts have implemented. There's 60 statewide efficiencies there, each with a hot link to connect you to the web page for that efficiency, and 75, just the first 75 are what will eventually be hundreds of programs created by the state trial courts, which we're now sharing. They're a click away for all of us to use. We know you want efficiencies. We know you want effective programs. We're going to deliver, we promise. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay, so we're complete with our public comment, and I believe Mr. Assemblymember Rodriguez, did you have?
I'd like to make the motion, but I don't know if Assemblymember Stone wants any comments or anything. Or?
Well, I have just a few comments on the issue of court funding. As you know, many of us in the Assembly side did sign the letter. The letter really was in support of ensuring that the court got more funding. I think every member of the Assembly firmly believed that. The sticking point is always going to be whether it's 100 million, 200, 266, or 300, whatever that number is. That will be the discussion that will be going forward from this committee once we get a motion and we move forward. But I also want to ensure not only the Department of Finance and the LAO and most important, the governor's office and the governor, that the legislature is going to look at, or for lack of a better word, or to use the LAO's word, performance measurements. This Monday, a group of judges actually gave me, and also gave me encouragement that the courts could actually measure some performances that we can then look at after a year and see whether or not they've made or exceeded any of these measurements. My staff is now trying to collate all of that. The good part is it represents about 70% of all the courts. I think many of the judges identified themselves at the mic, hopefully outing themselves that they came to my office and basically gave me a performance measure that probably the AOC or the Judicial Council didn't sign off on. Hopefully I don't get everybody in trouble. But I will tell you, as far as convincing not only LAO or the Department of Finance, I think it will go a long way to giving the governor's office and the governor in particular some measure of hope that when we come back again next year, no matter what amount we give, that we'll be able to discuss not only what you did and how you accomplished it, but I also want to have a frank and open conversation with Judge Jar and the Judicial Council and the Chief Justice and all the presiding judges about how we can improve that even more so and get even more bang for a buck as we go ahead and continue to fund the courts. And so that even though the courts may want $1.2 billion, I guess that's one of the numbers in the Chief Justice report, that we get to the real number quicker, and most important, that we use some efficiencies, as some of the judges are saying, to hopefully lower that number down so that we can ultimately get to what we want to do, full funding for the courts and access, and lower the amount of time it takes to get to a court, and the lines, they just need to go away. And so I'm unbelievably encouraged that we might be taking that first step, and I'm hoping as we move forward, not only do we talk about or moving forward with a number, but we attach to that performance measures, we attach to that coming back to this body before we start discussing next year's budget, where the courts are in that process, and how well they've done, and some suggestions on how they can do better. And so with that, Mr. Rodriguez.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I would like to make a motion to augment the court's budget by $262.1 million. My motion is inclusive of the governor's proposed $105 million. Lastly, my motion includes a placeholder language specifying that this augmentation cannot be used for a statewide court information technology project. If local courts want to use it for information technology projects, they must report back to the legislature prior to any changes of the use of these funds. That's my motion.
And
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Thank you, Madeline McLean, Department of Finance. I just want to get on record. We would object to providing any additional funding beyond what's proposed in the governor's budget, as the amount that we've provided, the $100 million, 105 total for the branch, is an amount we believe to be a sustainable amount.
Of course you do. Thank you.
Joan Sawyer.
Aye. Before that, I also want to make sure we put in some type of performance standards in.
Also include that language as well.
Joan Sawyer.
Aye.
Rodriguez.
Aye.
Stone. Aye. Motion passes 3-0.
Well, we're going to leave it open because I think Ms. Melendez also wants to weigh in.
So you want to go back to the
Okay. So we're going to go back to the items. To the items that when we didn't have a quorum that we missed. Item number 1, the California Highway Patrol Air Fleet Replacement. A motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve.
This is to approve the proposal as budgeted. Jones Sawyer.
Aye.
Rodriguez.
Aye.
Stone. Aye. Motion passes 3-0.
Motion for the Los Angeles County Mental Health Courthouse Project to adopt the updated proposal.
Second.
Jones Sawyer.
Aye.
Rodriguez.
Aye.
Stone. Motion passes 3-0.
The Alameda County New East County Hall of Justice. Motion to adopt the updated proposal.
Second.
Jones Sawyer.
Aye.
Rodriguez.
Aye.
Stone. Motion passes 3-0.